You probably know this poem. You probably know this poem. At least at this time of year, you probably know this poem. 'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while You possibly know this. You possibly know this story, this poem. You certainly should know it from about this time of year. 'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mamma in her kerchief and I in my cap had just settled our brains to the long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new-fallen snow cast a lustre of midday to objects below, when what to my wondering eyes did appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer, with a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be St. Nick. More rapid than eagles his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donder and Blixen. To the top of the porch, to the top of the wall, now dash away, dash away, dash away, all! As leaves that before the wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle, mount to the sky, so up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with the sleigh full of toys, and St. Nicholas too. And then in a twinkling I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples, how merry, his cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard on his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and filled all his stockings, then turned with a jerk, and laying his finger aside of his nose, and giving a nod up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim as he drove out of sight, "Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night." There we are. The story of St. Nicholas, the story of Santa Claus. This is the poem which is probably best known for introducing some of the key features of the modern understanding of Santa. It was published in 1823. It was published anonymously, but we learnt later that it was published by Charles Clement Moore. And, actually, we didn't necessarily learn that later, or history didn't, because there was another person who claimed to have written it, but we'll come to that later. Charles Clement Moore was a professor of theology, of Greek and Latin in a university in New York. But this poem picks up the tradition from the Netherlands of Sinterklaas, which is a festival on the 6th of December. And there is a tradition of putting presents inside children's shoes on the 5th of December. But who is St. Nicholas himself? St. Nicholas is quite a mysterious character, though he is cited as one of the people who attends the Council of Nicaea in Constantinople, or just outside Constantinople, the council which was convened to define modern Christianity under Constantine. And he could be confused with Nicander, who was martyred under Domitian and had been consecrated a bishop by St. Titus, one of the companions of St. Paul. But if he really is St. Nicholas, there is a tradition of St. Nicholas of Myra, which is a town in Turkey, and there's not very much known about him except that he went to live in Israel for 4 years, and he lived in a cave, so he was quite literally a troglodyte, and he gave away all his money. He was a wealthy person, gave away all his money to the poor, a little bit like St. Francis of Assisi, though in the case of St. Nicholas, there's no evidence that he gave away all his clothes as well. But there is a story of him tossing 3 bags of gold, one a night, through the window secretly, anonymously, of a poor family. And so much of the tradition and much of the practice of St. Nicholas, Santa Claus, Father Christmas, giving presents to children comes from that moment and that inspiration. So at some point he went to Israel and he lodged literally in a cave, so he was a troglodyte for 4 years near Bethlehem, in a little town, a little village near Bethlehem, where his memory is commemorated even today in a church in Beit Jala. So there's another reason to remember the conflict in Israel and Palestine over Christmas this year. The Santa in the poem is smaller, more whimsical, but no less lively, mysterious and generous than the Santa of the hagiography, of the holy stories. But the poem is the first document to introduce the reindeer. And it's of course, as you probably know, Coca-Cola, which fixes the red coat of Santa. But Santa was depicted, once colour printing came in a multiplicity of different colours, and you will still see the Santa Claus in multiple colours in Greece, in cards and pictures given out in Russia. But the idea of Santa and the idea of Father Christmas, these may be the same character. Father Christmas is very much a character from England and is quite well documented in England in the 15th century. And then at the end of the Commonwealth, at the end of the period following the Civil War, when Christmas had been abolished and banned by Oliver Cromwell. And in fact, there's a pamphlet that's published in 1652, where Father Christmas himself calls for the restoration of the monarchy to this headless country, he calls it, his headless country. Welcome or not, I am come, he says. And Christmas returned with the restoration of the new king, with the restoration of the monarchy. In a carol earlier from Plymouth, it's Father Christmas who announces the news of Christ's birth and encourages everyone who listens to him to drink and make merry, a little bit like the message of the Ghost of Christmas present in Charles Dickens' novel Christmas Carol, who may or may not be another incarnation of Father Christmas, like the Father Christmas often drawn in magazines in early Victorian literature. Father Christmas is wreathed in holly. That's something we don't often see today. But I said there was a debate, and there is a debate, and it still goes on in places in America about who actually wrote the poem. Was it Mr. Moore, or was it somebody else? Because there was a distant ancestor of George W. Bush, the president, who claimed to have written it. But then George W. Bush was never quite that trustworthy, was he? And I don't imagine that honesty and veracity flowed in his family. But there we are. Happy Christmas.